Yo guys, what's going on? Robert Warshack here, and we're going to be going over some budget decks for you guys to play. We have quite a bit of them. Keep in mind that all of these budget decks don't include any legendaries that are not provided to you for free by Hearthstone. They also have a max of like 2 epics in the deck, so 2 cards of 2 copies each, so a total of I guess 4, but there's only like 2. After that, there's, like I said, no legendaries that aren't provided to free, and they're very, very cheap, and they're easily upgradable. Some of them are just already like, that's the best the deck's gonna get just because the way I built it. So first thing is first, we have Budget Murloc. This is a new deck because Warlock did get a massive amount of new Murloc cards. Looking at stuff like Rock Bottom, Chum Bucket, the new Amalgam card, Void Gill, the Scavenger. It also got Vilefin and the Ravager. So there's just a bunch of new Murlocs that either draw cards, buff cards. While this may not be the most competitive of the decks that we're going to be looking at, this is a very, very cheap deck that can get to D5. Like, you could probably, if you really wanted to, hit Legend with this. It would be a little difficult because the Druids out there and whatnot, but this should actually do fairly well against Druid, given that this is a more aggressive style deck. If you like Murlocs, this is definitely a fantastic. Regardless, it's still gonna do fairly well for you guys. It's definitely down the hole of being an aggressive style deck. Chum Bucket's actually like super, super good because like the deck basically runs all Murlocs, right? And then it's like give all your Murlocs in your hand +1/+, run, repeat each for Murloc you control. So you can really buff up stuff like the Twin Fin and things of that nature. So while while Murlocs are normally a meme, this deck actually, I think on HS Replay, does have above a 50% win rate. And we only added 2 Trogs in here, and we replaced some more expensive stuff that was unnecessary. So good deck, cheap, to the point. Murlocs go burr. What's going on? Appreciate you watching. If you do like the content and you like the channel, be sure to drop that sub. Leave a like and a comment on the videos that you do like. It really helps the channel out, shows it to more people, keeps it growing, and allows me to keep doing this as my job. And if not, that's okay too. I'll see you at the next McDonald's drive-thru. Next, we have Budget Face Hunter. Face Hunter is always a fantastic aggro face deck. It has everything you need to basically beat every single deck that exists. If it draws right, Face Hunter is just like the best deck in the game, right? It just does so much damage, closes out games by turn 4 or 5 at the latest. So very aggressive deck, starts off strong, has a lot of 1-drops, 2-drops, caps out at actually 4-drops. We do have a small Naga package in here with stuff like Naga's Pride, the Terror Coil, the Scribe, the Slith Spear. So there are some Naga packages in here, and they are really, really good cards. This deck is pretty much fully already upgraded. The only thing that if you wanted to, you could put in the Barak Kodobane for some extra draw, and you could put in the new legendary Naga that does damage based on the spells that you play for more face damage. And but besides that, this deck is perfectly fine. And for those 2 cards, I guess you could take out like Animal Companion or something. But yeah, Face Hunter, very, very good, very aggressive, very similar to the Murloc Warlock. Moving to the Budget Naga Demon Hunter deck. This deck popped out of nowhere. I'm assuming because all the Druids have been poking their noses in ladder and going crazy and doing a bunch of Druid things like they've been doing. Most of these aggro decks are like punishing those Druids, right? So this is going to be the Naga aggro DH that, like I said, recently popped up. If you're looking at Drekthar, you're like, oh my god, it's a legendary. Rob, you lied to us. Oh my god. This card should have been provided to like everybody for free. I still think you can actually get him for free. All you had to do was like, what, log in or something, and you got this guy. So this guy should be free. If you don't have this guy for whatever reason, you've managed to exploit the game to your disadvantage, just throw in another like Need for Greed. That should be fine. This deck is a very aggressive style deck. Again, does a lot of damage split between minions because you have a nice early game package, and then you also have stuff like Chaos Strike and Predation with the Nagas, Puffer Fist. Every time you attack face, it's a lot of damage. A way to upgrade this deck a lot though, you add Lady Syntho and you add the Kirchuous to this deck, and it's basically the refined list. And those cards are really good. So if you're liking Demon Hunter, you want an aggro deck that is Demon Hunter, add Lady, Synth, and Kirchuous. Those are fantastic cards for this list, and that's how you make it not budget. Taking a look at some budget Mech Mage. This is a deck that is new. This didn't exist up until the new expansion. It received a ton of new net mechs. We'll quickly, I guess, cover them over. We got the clicker, we got, again, the amalgam, we have the security automation, which is really good because after you play a mech, you get +1/+1. It's a mech deck, you play a lot of mechs, does a lot of mech things. We have the sweeper, which then puts a card at the bottom of your deck, and then the surveyor picks it up, which is basically your entire value package. You don't run like Arcane Intellect or any of those cards because it's not needed. You basically just keep generating discover mechs from like Gorilla Bot, you sweeper, and then you surveyor that card back up. You generate 3 mechs that way. The amalgam generates mechs. The mothership generates mechs. So there's a lot of mech generation and discover in this deck, along with stuff that just pops out of stuff and does a shit ton of damage. I did opt to include Ruined Orb though, because Ruined Orb does some damage to the face or it kills a minion. And then you can discover a spell, and that spell, you can, if you need draw, you can find it. If you want some more value, you can find it. Or if you need more damage, hopefully you can find that, right? So Ruined Orb's kind of just like a flex spell that you can use it when need be to try to look for what you're trying to look for. But besides that, yeah, Mech Mage performing very, very well. And I think the only cards that make this not budget are the new Colossal Mech, and the new, I think it's like a 5 or 6 mana mech that copies a mech and gives it like Divine Shield, and it's like Oni something. Anyway, this deck seemed to do really, really well. Very good deck. Again, this is more of an aggressive style deck, a little bit slower though than the Face Hunter and the Murloc deck. This is more of a combo-y, I don't want to say combo, but more mid-range, because you really want to proc off with this Mecha Shark. After you summon a mech, deal 3 damage randomly split among all enemies. So using your Seafloor Gateway, discount some mechs, go Mecha Shark, make a big board, do a lot of damage, and then kind of just win from there is what you'll find yourself doing with this deck a lot. But you also can obviously just curve out and then just win with like security or something. But yeah, a little bit more flex to the mid game the budget mech has. Taking a look at another mech deck. Of course, we have to include mech decks because the mechs are new. We have Mech Paladin. So basically the same sort of package as the Mech Mage. You're going to see the clicker, you're going to see the Annoyotron, you're going to see the security automation, the Gorilla Bot, but there are some differences with stuff like the Bubble Bot, which gives your other mechs Divine Shield and Taunt. As we know, Paladins love Divine Shield, so I made sure to include like stuff like Noble Mount and the Vindicator, which draws a spell that costs 3 or less in your deck. You've got the radar detector, so instead of putting a mech to the bottom of your deck and then playing it and generating 3 mechs, this scans the bottom of your deck and then draws any mechs found this way. So this is huge draw. You can pull this from Vindicator. You also can pull Noble Mount. Noble Mount has Divine Shield. Divine Shield works with Prismatic Jewel Kit, along with all the Divine Shield stuff. So it's the same kind of mech deck as the Mech Mage, but it's just like a little bit different. It's Paladin mechs. So if you're interested in building the mech decks, you're probably going to be able to do Paladin and Mech Mage. If you know, budget player, both of them have very, very similar like core set of cards, right? So there's a lot of overlapping stuff that if you craft, you'll have for both decks there. So, and then if I forgot, if you want to upgrade this, just include the Colossal Minion and Cariel. Those are two of basically what makes this deck really, really good. If you really want to, you can include Smite too, but it doesn't really matter. Cariel and the Colossal Minion are kind of like really, really good. Heading on to the last of the budget decks we're going to cover, we have Budget Bottom Feeder Druid. This is a more aggressive style token Druid deck that revolves around, I wouldn't say revolves around, but we've got the bottom feeder in here, and it basically is infinite value, especially when you combo off with stuff like Oracle Loon and then bottom feeder, and then it discounts your Frost Saber, and then you go aquatic form, and then you get another bottom feeder, and then you buff that, or you Moonlit Guidance into a bottom feeder. So it has all of the stuff that like an aggressive token Druid would have, with the Oracle and the Power of the Wild and the Pack Mule and the compositing and all that good stuff. But it also has the bottom feeder, which is fun and it's cool. So this is a sort of like beast token Druid, and you actually play this deck not like an aggro deck. You play like a value deck. You actually just fight for board the whole time. Like there's no burst in this deck, right? There's no fireballs or arbor ups. You really play this deck for just strictly board control, value trades, making sure you're getting the most out of your cards, and setting up just like a more and more powerful board each turn, which is kind of weird because most aggro druids, you're just like pushing face damage, which is the next one we're going to cover. But this one, you actually don't play it like that at all. It was kind of interesting. And the next one is the Budget Taunt Druid. But again, we run the new Asherian Gardens, which gives all minions in your hand +1/+1. You put a Sunken Gardens at the bottom of your deck, you aquatic form that, so it's actually really good, especially with most of your deck being, you know, small minions that can benefit from stuff like this. Again, we also run Direct Thar, and we run him because he's the most expensive minion in the deck. You run one Capture the Cold Tooth Mine because you can Cold Tooth Mine on 2, get Drethar, and like, you know, play him if you have coin or something like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this deck. Out of all the decks we covered, this is again, more like either Druid deck is fine. I would say probably the bottom feeder one is a little bit better than this one, but this one has a lot of the similar cards that we've seen in previous builds. So I tried to include decks that are not only new budget decks, but also old budget decks with just like a sprinkle of a couple new cards, just in case you guys don't have the dust to be able to build like a full, you know, budget Murloc or full budget Mech Mage or whatever. You still have like Druid options that may not have as many of the new cards, right? So try to get a good spread for you guys there. So with that, those are all the budget decks that I built. I'll be posting videos on those decks shortly. I think the Druid is the first one up. Expect that within the next couple days of probably this video. And yeah, with that, if there's any other budget decks you think I missed or you're playing and having success with, feel free to leave those in the comment section below. Share to others, help them out, and give me some feedback. All right. So with that, thanks you guys for watching. As always, I'm Robert Warshack, and happy whatever the hell day it is.